When we're working, we're so much into our head, and we'll never get to those other areas and avenues.
Today, we're diving into an opportunity most business owners don't even know exists, an approach to skyrocketing your conversion rates that only the top players in the industry understand. Why have so many people programmed to think that it must be so hard to double, triple, quadruple incomes, revenues, profits, growth in the business?
We're conditioned, programmed that that's not how the world works. Somehow somebody came up with that model and spoke that, and people bought into it, and it became part of their programming. It doesn't have to be exhausting. It doesn't have to rob every hour of my life to achieve it.
Joey Drolshagen, a seasoned expert with decades of corporate leadership and a proven track record of helping entrepreneurs achieve transformative results. Joseph developed a game-changing methodology. By the end of this episode, you'll uncover the complete framework of this method and how to implement it effectively in your business.
It doesn't matter where you've come from. It doesn't matter what you've gone through. All that matters is we have a really clear indication of where are you right now, and then where do you want to be? And from those 2 points, anybody that has an open mind can achieve that end result quicker and moreover greater than that result by going through that reprogramming, the perception shifting, which will then change their results.
I think it's time to talk about your own trademark method. Come on, let's address that elephant. Give me some background about that method. I mean, how did you discover it?
I come from a struggling family, blue-collar family in Detroit, Michigan. I grew up and stuff. And so I noticed when I was I knew that wasn't right in how I wanted to live, what was modeled. But I didn't know what it was supposed to be like, because that's what was modeled to me. And so when I got in my early 20s, I started identifying that things would come to me. And I felt I didn't deserve them because I didn't work hard enough for them. And I knew something was wrong with that line of thinking, but I didn't know what or how to change it. So I dove into things, into self-study books, into the greats, that taught that early on. I had The Secret, and I've tried all these different avenues and stuff, and nothing ever really, I felt good. Like I was a positive person, but it was almost like I pushed myself to be a positive person because I never really got the results out of it that I was looking for. And so I go on to, self-study programs. I go into one-on-one coaching programs, and this has been consistent since I've been 22 years old. So at that point where I was really struggling in sales, and I'm going, man, I can't believe how much I've invested, and I'm still like this. And when I came upon that study on mindset, I didn't even know exactly what it was, but I knew it made sense. And what connected me with it is as I started reading it, like I could relate to what they talked about in that struggle area. So then I took that further, started doing some different coaching with different coaches and programs. And I got into the whole thing of starting to really understand the intricate dynamics of the mindset and how in that subconscious mind, we have this motherboard that hosts all of our programming, which is the words we hear, the thoughts we entertain, like all the, who we hang out with, all that stuff is in that programming. And that programming is responsible for triggering our brain waves, the actions we take or don't take. So we know what we want in our conscious mind, but the doing part of it comes from the subconscious. So we end up with a disconnect between knowing what we want and taking the actions leading to it because we have something blocking that avenue. So once I started understanding that, and when I say it, it's easy to explain right now, but it took me a decade to really understand it for myself, let alone explain it. And so as I started identifying that limiting beliefs in the subconscious, which led to my perceptions, which led to my results, I always wanted to try and change my results. Then for a while, I tried changing the perceptions, but it really needed to change at this level. And that changes my perceptions. I start seeing things differently. So I don't see a down economy as no growth potential there, and so I experience growth in those times. And now today, my clients do the same. But once I started understanding that, and then it was like, and it really, I'm explaining it to you, but it was really step by step understanding this stuff. And so as I understood that step, and then as I understood the programming, and then as I became aware of that, and then as I learned tools and worked with people and developed tools and stuff to shift that, all of a sudden I started seeing changes in my results. And there's so many things I had to break away from there. Like I had to break away from all those one-size-fit-all type of mentality thinking and programs and books and everything else. Like if you and I do the same 3 actions, we're both going to get different results. because we're unique individuals, which means our programming is unique to us. So as I started learning this more, one of the things that really made sense to me is I have 4 siblings. So there's 5 of us children. And whenever we get together and talk about a story of something that happened when we were all there present for growing up, there's 5 different perceptions of that story.
Yeah.
Because we're all taking it based on it. So when you look at that and we
That's
have
so
those
true.
perceptions of things, and it can even be experiences that we didn't personally have, but somebody told us, and we that gets programmed into that, and we live by that without ever truly experiencing it ourselves.
I understand it completely, but I really want you to help me take it from the theoretical level to the practical
Yes.
level. So
Yes.
I created the Burnout-Free Business Guide to help seasoned entrepreneurs avoid what is, in my experience, the #1 business killer: owners and founders who run out of passion, energy, or focus for their business because they can't fight off the burnout any longer. My name is Ido Lederman. I'm the host of the Tipping Point of Success podcast, a former successful musician, founder of multiple pioneering businesses that have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs reach their desired version of success. I'm passionate about helping business owners like you make sure you know how to deal with burnout when it comes, so you can get out of it quickly and continue in your path of achieving your goals and vision. This free guide shares everything I've learned that you need to know. Follow the link below and I'll send the guide your way, no strings attached. How does subconscious mindset training look like when I'm working with my sales team, or when you're working with a sales team?
Yeah, I come right out of the gate developing that dynamic vision I talked about, and I do it for the individual that I'm working with. So if I'm working with a business owner, we work on their vision, what they see the company, everything else, stuff like that. And then when I'm working with sales personnel, I got to give you both things here. I'm working from their level. What is important to them? What do they want to achieve? What does this look like, for them being a part of this organizational vision? Well, then right from there, once we have that, which that there alone is an expansion of our programming. It forces us to get outside of our comfort zone, whatever you want to call it, and get outside of that area and stuff, so we can start bumping. And the whole program is designed to bump up against that conditioning. So once we have the vision, then we start taking steps. We start taking steps and bridging that gap from where we are to where we want to be. And in doing so, we're continuing to bump up against that programming, because there's things that everybody I've ever met, I've never met a lazy person, but we'll see people not take the actions. And what I know is that person wants that result. There's something stopping them from taking that action. And so whether it's picking up the 10,000 pound phone or whatever it is then we work through, we work through that and shift that and open that up. We make a game. We do a lot of different things with it. And then as we're going forward through that, one of the things the SMT method does very well is developing systems of accelerating habits that are unique to the individual. So 2 people would never coach with me and me give them actions of what to do, and it'd be the same action. What I do is it helps them to develop. What are those things you enjoy doing? What are those things that really light you up? What are those things that, make you excited about what you do? And then we find time to do more of those things. Where there's a lot of things in the one size fit all type of sales training programs and stuff like that everybody does the exact same things. And you have people that are getting exhausted, you have them burned out, you have them just not enjoying what they're doing or anything else. If I can get somebody doing something that they enjoy doing in action, whether maybe it's not phone calls, maybe it's going out and meeting people, maybe, there's different ways of doing the same thing. And I help them align to that. Now all of a sudden they're excited about doing it. Now all of a sudden it's like, man, I really want to get a hold of this place, and all of a sudden picking up the phone becomes easy, and these other avenues. And so as we go through it, and then it's helping to get success as quickly as possible, because once somebody achieves a level of success in doing something, they buy into it a lot more. They get more fire and gust going into it and excitement and stuff like that. So it's designed to get that as quickly as possible and then continuing going forward.
I really love the attitude of what you said, that there's not a lazy person, or that there's a block there, and you have to identify the block. I love that approach. I think with kids also, it's so true and so overlooked.
And one of the things when people are looking at what's my limits, they'll go, well, I procrastinate. Well, that's not your limit. That's how you react. Your limit's below that. So we really get down into that core of that programming. What's causing you to procrastinate? So it's getting into the core of what's the cause of it, and moving forward from there. Once we identify that, shift that, come up with some ideas to start opening that up more.
I'm dying for as many examples as possible.
Yeah.
To understand how can SMT Method help me as a business owner align mindset, desires, and actions to improve sales. If you can give me like one or two examples.
I'll give you one example of a client I worked with, had a wholesale company. And at the time I met, he was doing like roughly $300,000 a year in revenue, and, and had kind of maintained that for 5 years that he'd been in business, or, grew up to that. And, but he had a line of credit that he was using to cover the gap between revenue and cost. And, within 12 months, he went to $3 million. And the way he did that is we went through that process and started identifying, he had fears. He had fears of toppling over $1 million. So when we identified those and we shifted those and we got into and this is where a vision really helps, Ido, is when we have a vision, fear will halt us. A powerful vision will pull us into it. And so the things we fear, and all of a sudden, when he did that, and he, not even halfway through the year, he was at, I think, like 180,000, and now he's projecting out. It started lighting that fear up for him. So we could talk about that in a couple of sessions on one-on-one, and start shifting that and opening that up, and different, unique for every individual. I'd never worked with the two individuals the exact same way. And in doing that, all of a sudden, he no longer had the fear of the 1 million. He had the excitement of the $3 million. And it just started lighting him up as he was seeing it happening.
I have to say that almost sounds like too simple. I can't wait to test it myself. But it also sounds like too simple. Okay, you can go wherever you want, and it can take 12 months. All you got to do is really align with your goal and see that, and feel the lack of limitation, the lack of the ability, of the disability to go there. And that's it.
I mean, to go from 7.5 to $22 million in a year is unrealistic, right? It doesn't even and that's what I'll hear people say, that's not even realistic, but the person achieved it, so what it is when we say it, it could be easy, you hear that a lot too, that's too simple.
Yeah.
That's our programming telling us it has to be harder.
Joey, you have to tell me, why are so many people programmed to think that it must be so hard to double, triple, quadruple incomes, revenues, profits, growth in the business? Why?
We're conditioned based on our family, right? That's where it starts out. So if we're in a struggling family, if we're in a family, then we're going to see that. So huge growth isn't possible in that kind of a situation. So we start following that, and then we go to school and stuff like that, and we're taught to, that conditioned, programmed that's not how the world works. That's fantasy thinking. And even deeper into that, we go to school. Okay, let's say we're in the 8th grade. And you and I are given a math problem, and I show it in all its length and everything else, working through the problem and everything and stuff, right? And you show it, but you have a shortcut that helps you avoid a few of those steps, and you get to the answer. When we get those math papers back, I get the grade for working it all out. You get a minus part of that grade because you didn't show all the work. So you think about that, and we're conditioned like that through life, through school, through employers, all that it can't be easy. That in order to be of value, just like the thought I used to have, it's got to be hard. In order to achieve success, it's got to be hard. We've heard a lot of things for decades that if you want something, you got to put massive actions and exhaustive efforts, and you got to be willing to trade off your life in order to achieve that. But it's never been true. But somehow somebody came up with that model and spoke that, and people bought into it, and it became part of their programming. And then they're raising kids and they're teaching that in their programming, and it's just a continuation of it through our life. Even this conversation right now, we're both receiving programming in that motherboard from this conversation. So if we're going to sit here and we want to talk about lacks and limitations and why you can't and why the struggles and everything else, we're feeding that into it, which means we're going to experience more of that. And this isn't philosophy, what I'm talking about. It's physics.
So what kind of conversation would you endorse and encourage?
I encourage we say positive and negative, but it's not really. That's just judgments we put on things. I
Right.
encourage expansive conversations. I love this conversation. I love having expansive conversations that talk about what's available beyond this right here, right now. And as I get into more of those, it starts reprogramming. It starts building a belief that's bigger is available and possible. And really, probably one of the hardest things that for me to have gotten a hold of is it doesn't have to be exhausting. It doesn't have to rob every hour of my life to achieve it.
Convince me that it doesn't have to be exhausting.
We all know there's times in our life when we really struggle, right, to achieve something. We put in massive hours, efforts, everything else. It's on our mind all the time and everything else. And we may achieve that, we may not achieve that. Most times people acting that way achieve a lesser amount, a mediocre amount of what they truly desire. So we start changing. But yeah, so you ever have something, you're thinking about something and all of a sudden it just shows up, or you're trying to solve something and all of a sudden the answer just comes to you and you couldn't have done it yourself?
Sure.
Okay,
Comes
most
by
people will say,
mail, someone sends me an email. Oh, that's exactly what I was looking for.
yes. Yeah. You overhear something at a coffee shop,
Yep.
right? Or all of a sudden a client will come to you out of the blue. This person, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they saw your LinkedIn or something and they call you up and talking. And it's just one of those easy things to sign them up to work with you, right?
For me, what happens most is ideas spring into my head that I tell myself, I don't know where it came from. And I would never thought about that, but I did think about it.
Yes. Those things come to you when you're working exhaustively, going crazy, trying to do 10
No, they
things at a
come to
time.
me at 4:00 in the morning, 5:00 in the
When
morning.
you're peaceful, when you're
Yeah,
calm.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Taking that, most people will say, yeah, it's a coincidence. It happens every now and again and things like that. But what it is those are available all the time. When we get into that alignment with what we want and we quit fighting on what could happen and what should happen and how I overcome this before it even shows up and all this stuff, we're so busy, we don't see those opportunities coming. So when we slow down, one of the first things I do with, I would say 85 to 90% of the business owners I work with is I got to get them to throttle back a little bit. And I do that as we're developing the vision and stuff. So now all of a sudden they're more aware of those things. They're more available to have those thoughts. They're not going crazy. They're not staying up all night with anxiety and fear and all that stuff going on. So when we slow down, we start opening up to more of those things happening in our life on a regular basis. If I talk to you about any of the clients I've helped go from, $3,200 to $26,000 a month, or the 7.5 to 22 million, or 300,000 to 3 million, things like that, when they get there, there's no way they could have built that stepway of their own to do that. But we're so programmed that you got to figure it out. You got to strategize it. You got to know what to do, when to do it, and everything else. And it just adds so much more exhaustion to what we're trying to achieve. When we get that vision, all of a sudden we're more in alignment with those things like you were talking about right there, where all of a sudden a thought 4:00 in the morning comes to you and doing something you would have never even known to look at that avenue.
So I want to know what happens when the slowing down occurs, because of course I appreciate and understand the fear of, if I slow down, if I do less, balls will fall from the air, right? Things will get stuck. The machine will blow up if I slow down, or if I stop the doing. So how do you convince someone to do that, to overcome that fear of slowing down, maybe stopping, taking a break, getting out of the business, investing time in thinking and getting those ideas?
The first thing is in developing that dynamic vision, and we start building the excitement around that vision. So then we can start focusing on that vision, and it'll take us away from some of that scrambling thoughts of all the stuff we have to do. And the massive actions of, because we're programmed. If something's not working, I got to work harder. I got to work more to make it work.
But that's a one-time occurrence. You have to convince me to develop a habit of doing that.
Well, and that's what happens through the SMT method, is we get into that place of, and like I talked about success. When somebody achieves their first success and they're not plowing 150 miles an hour, and you start connecting that they achieved that because they weren't doing that. All of a sudden, people will start buying into that more, and they'll start doing it more and things like that. I had one client. He's a leader of sales teams, and I worked with him. Oh God, this got to be 10, 12 years ago now. And I kept talking to him about the what I call patterns, paradigms, that programming. He said, I don't have those things. I don't have those. And I go, really? He goes, yeah, I don't have them anywhere. I go, okay, let's do it. You open to an experiment? And he goes, yeah. Now this is going to sound really silly, but so I said, tomorrow morning when you jump in the shower, I want you to lather your hair 12 times with shampoo and then rinse. Stop lathering and just rinse. And he goes, okay. He called me back the next day. He called me an MFer.
Okay.
He said, I couldn't do it. I stopped, I started, and I could not do it. I had to go back to finish whatever my pattern is and stuff. That opened up the door for him to start seeing the other patterns and how he's doing his business.
The automaticity of things.
Yes.
The automaticity of his day, of everything he's doing.
Yes. And what happens is we have that programming and we're just unconsciously living by that programming. So if something doesn't work, we put more hours, we work harder. If things aren't growing the way we want, then we double up our speed on what we're doing and all the stuff we're doing. And we go back into the mind and strategizing. And what we create is a situation where it can't grow because of how much we are embedding of everything we have on that side of things of going harder at it. When we slow down and we start seeing things come to fruition easier, we become open for it. Once we see it, once we experience it, it's like, I want more of that. So even in getting the results, we start wanting more of those results, which is what brings us forward rather than the working hard and all that stuff that's actually blocking the results we could be achieving.
So how can a business owner take what you've just shared here today and start applying the subconscious mindset training, the SMT method, in their own business to their sales team? What would the process look like? Would it start in the shower or would it start somewhere else? For someone wanting to implement this into their daily business operations, the daily business routines.
I would say find some time over, few hours, a couple days a week, whatever it is for the individual, but just set some time aside when you're not going to focus on business. You're not going to focus on anything, and you're just going to focus on that. What do you truly desire your business to be? If you're working in sales for a corporation, what do you truly want to achieve in that role within that organization, and get clarity around it? What's it look like as far as the growth? What's it look like with customers? What's it look like with your dealings with the outside and the people internally in your organization? Because so looking at that side of things, okay? And ultimately and then getting clarity around what's it feel like to be at that level? If you're a business owner and you want to go from 10 to $50 million, what's it feel like being at $50 million? What kind of clothes do you wear? Like, really put it on, really get specific about it. I'm a very big proponent on writing it down, because when we do the writing, we're taking a step into commitment to that vision, but get a lot of clarity around it. That would be a starting point.
Sometimes when I do that, I actually get overwhelmed, because when I really do that, I come up with such a huge vision that it scares me. What if I can't handle that?
And that is the level we want to get a vision. If we have a vision that we know how we're going to achieve, that's not really a vision, it's a goal. A vision is something, and I love that you said that, it scares you, because a true dynamic vision is going to be, I don't know how the heck I'm going to achieve that. And we're going to stay away from the how. So even as you're writing it, if it feels like it gets like that, just look, because you're probably getting into how are you going to do it. And that's not what we're doing here. We just want that vision. And when we get that clarity to it, it'll help us to the next step of becoming aware of the thoughts and the feelings we feel about achieving that. So when we take 10 to 50 million, at $50 million, if that scares us, it's going to start bringing up the things about what scares us. That's the programming. Now, as far as shifting that, I've tried a long time to do that for myself. And I wasn't as successful as working with somebody else and who could help guide me through that process, And so that's where the SMT method is huge. But just to try it out and start noticing those things, and identifying, again, if you're saying, yeah, I procrastinate, go deeper. What's causing the procrastination? Because that's going to bring you back to that programming.
I'm trying to formulate like a small checklist here. So step number 1, take time to reconnect with your vision bigger than your know-how. This is a one-time thing. I'm trying to habitualize the next step. Is it identifying when you find yourself feeling that those anxieties or those insecurities and do something there?
Yeah. So, okay. So we
what's the
have the
second
vision,
step?
right? Now we have this dynamic vision that kind of scares us,
We
but
have
we're
it.
excited about. Okay.
Here it
So now
is.
we got the vision. Now we start going about our day. In my morning practices, like I'll bring up that vision. I'll get myself into that viewing of that vision. Okay. And then I start going through my day. And all of a sudden an action will come up or something will happen. And I'll look at it and go, well, that's not how I am in my vision. In my vision, I'm not working 12 to 14 hours a day.
Mm.
So what's causing me to do that? In my vision, because part of the thing that happens is we so much live by the situations and circumstances of what's happening right now today in our life. And we have a good day or a bad day dependent on what those situations and circumstances are. So in this, we can start understanding and we'll start seeing where what I'm calling a problem today, it's just a snapshot in time for today. My vision becomes bigger than my situation and circumstances, which then those things don't have as much pull to me.
What I understand is during the days, look for misalignments with your vision. What's not looking like my vision? But also, I have to tell you, it sounds logical because my vision is in the future. I'm not in the future. In order to get to my vision in the future, I need to do some stuff that I don't like to do, and that does not look like my vision in the future. Because that's how I get there. It's a previous step. How do I reconcile that?
Well, because ultimately we cannot experience that vision in our outside experiences until we become that person of that vision internally. As we make that shift internally, it redoes that programming. It opens up doors and avenues for us that we would not otherwise achieve. And so it by identifying those things, we don't have judgment on it, but by identifying those things, it'll take us to, like with the scenario you just gave. Okay, I know I'm not like that right now, but this isn't my vision. I'm not at that level and things like that. But it will, if we stay away from judgment stuff, it'll take us to that point of going, so how would I be in my vision? And we start seeing little specks of it showing up like that. And then all of a sudden,
even that question, like, hey, I'm in misalignment with the vision. Let me see. Is this what I'm supposed to do, or is there another way? Is there a quicker way? Is there an easier way?
Yeah.
What would my future self be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like how would I handle this in that place of that person in the vision? And we start getting new scenarios and new ideas on how to handle things and how to work through situations.
Give me another step. That's step 2. Identifying,
Step 2.
Asking the question. Yeah. Step 3.
Yeah. So step 3 is the actual shifting of that conditioning and putting new programming in its place. And I mean, to do it alone, I would just look again at that vision and have enough clarity on it to know how would that person react in this situation. And I would practice putting that on. Now it can get a little bit complex here and start losing the how-tos depend on scenarios and stuff like that, but that's really the process. And that's what's built into the SMT is to take somebody through that pathway to help identify those and then shift them to start becoming more of that person in that vision. Ultimately, what I do, really, you could boil it down to personal transformation because that's ultimately what we're doing here.
100%. I want to take it back to the level of the sales team. So creating that vision together, onboarding and owning that vision with the team. 1, second, identifying when we are back in that habit of running on the treadmill, working too hard, not realizing that, missing all those opportunities of getting there easier, faster, better. Second, asking what's wrong with this picture? How can I make this picture better? What would the vision guy do?
Yes.
What would the guy from the vision do? And is that like as a sales team leader, do I ask my team to write down the experience they had that day? What are the conclusions? Do I meet them once a week? Do I ask them to write me once a day? What was their experience?
And there's so many different ways of doing that. I make it unique to the organization. Now, a sales manager, somebody managing a sales team, they may not have that time to dive into each individual they're working with to bring that stuff out of them. And it's not even just the fact that they don't know how, even learning how to fulfill a role as a VP of sales or a director of sales or things like that. You have so many balls included in that responsibility of that title that you have to cover there's not really time to do it all. Now somebody I work with as a business owner, and I work with them, and then they get those things, and then as they're bringing on and building a sales team, they can embed that right from the start with it and such, and bring on the right people and get that alignment going with their team, the vision, all that and stuff. It's a little bit easier to do, but yeah. And when I said that earlier about like hit the pause,
I wanted to ask you about that. Does it infiltrate the culture? Do I send that message across the teams? Like make more pauses, work slower, think, wait before you pick up the call again?
Yeah, I don't know if I went into a sales organization and say, okay, I want you guys to stop working so hard. But what it is helping the individuals. Another way of saying that pause is to take some time to find the calm. And in that mode, build that vision. Don't do it when things are hectic and you're going crazy and everything else,
How do I find calm? What's the tool to finding calm in the midst of trying to get to my quota or trying to hit that number of sales?
For me, there's so many different ways. I hang glide, I motorcycle, I trout fish, fly rod fish. I have activities. I go out into nature and just walk, like things like that to find that, whatever it is. And there's endless ways, but whatever it is to just find some calm in everything going on and stuff. Allow yourself to take a little bit of time to be in that calm and get into that place when you're writing your vision. If you're going about it when you're hectic and everything, what you're really going to do is try problem solving every situation going on that you don't want to be going on.
I'm sorry that I'm going back and forth between being the
That's
business owner and being and talking about the team members, because I'm trying to also help them find the calm when they're working. And I want to know how can I help them calm within a day's work? Or is it just between, when they finish on the weekends?
I don't think when I started this stuff out like this, I was able to say, okay, I'm taking 2 hours now in the middle of the work day and I'm going to find the calm and I'm going to do, it was things like in the evenings and things like that, but I tied it into something I know if I go out into nature, I'm going to feel calm. So it's like when I do things like that, whatever those things are, and if we're not doing that anywhere, we're living really tough.
Yeah.
But if we don't have those kind of down times, and maybe it's not during the working hours. Now today, I can do that in the middle of a day. I have the freedom to be able to do that. But when I started out, I couldn't. I would do it on weekends, or I would do it like in the evening if I went out to nature and things like that. So it really got, fits into, I'm not saying don't work hard at what you're trying to achieve. I'm saying aside from that, find some time to find some calm and then write that vision from there.
Would you direct a CEO or a business owner, force him to do those wind downs, find time for himself, do things that he likes, stop working 24/7?
I'd help hold him accountable to doing that. People working 24/7 are spending 60% of their time up here in their head and the remainder of the time taking actions, whether they're actions that help or hinder, whatever. But, when we're working, when we're doing things like that, we're so much into our head and we'll never get to those other areas and avenues. And ultimately, the point of building the vision is because we're going to make that the reality that we live by. So our situations and circumstances are snapshots in time that we have to deal with, but they don't have to control our, everything about us and drive us to go faster and faster and faster. They can just be things that are happening as that vision is unfolding. And we start opening up that vision and see it start coming to reality. And that has its own excitement that increases that even more. But I did not start out by working, the work week I work today where I take Mondays and Fridays and things like that. I didn't start out that way. I started out traveling 3,000 to 5,000 miles a week, every week. And I would start finding that calm in the evening when I got to a hotel at 10 o'clock at night. And then I would find some over the weekend. And I had a young son, so I spent a lot of time with him when I was home. And so, it's not that we stop working to do this. It's that we just find time.
We talked about it. The vision part is well known and it's fairly easy to take the time and to do that. But on a day-to-day basis, to stop ourselves from not stopping ourselves, that's the hard part. If we don't have like a really clear and easy to implement, understandable workflow or set of tools, what to do and what to not do in order to really identify the points in which we are not conducting ourselves as someone that has that vision would. It's really hard to catch yourself, in that situation.
part of it is redefining our perception of it, right? Because anybody working, even during the work day, it's not 100% pounding away to it and stuff like that. There's times we might get a coffee, we might use the restroom, we might do this, we might do this, but we don't utilize that time as downtime. We don't perceive it that way because I had to go to the bathroom or I got a coffee or talk to Frank for 20 minutes, so it's in how we're utilizing that time. We could be standing around the water cooler talking about all the politics and economics and this and that and everything else. And that's not productive use of that time. We could take that same amount of time, say our lows and stuff, and then take a couple moments of it and just start picturing what is it that I want to achieve and what does that look like? So we're not even finding, I had a guy I worked with one time, and he said to me, I don't even have 3 hours a week to practice my guitar. And I go, what? I have an entire week. And he goes, yeah, I don't have 3 hours a week. So I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen and I went, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We start on Sunday. We end up getting to Wednesday and found 12 hours a week he could be practicing his guitar, and we still had almost a half a week to go. And so I said, so is that still? He goes, no, I guess it's not. I never saw it that way. It's our perceptions of how we see things of I'm going 24/7. I got to constantly go and we're not doing that. A lot of it is just up in our head that we could be using that time more productively to achieve what we want to achieve rather than all that spinning out.
Is there something about the SMT method that you still haven't shared with us that you can share that I haven't asked about?
The other thing and I might have said it, but I just want to really illustrate it, is it's a unique journey geared towards that individual. And it's based on the individual and the uniqueness of that individual.
So the subconscious part is understanding what's going through that individual's, what connections does he have, background, understanding how his subconscious mind work, and then retraining that, opening that, allowing new pathways to come in.
Yeah, changes in the programming shift the perception, which then shift the result. So it's really based on the individual's desires for that vision that I call the vision and stuff. And then it's based on their programming. And what I tell people is it doesn't matter where you've come from. It doesn't matter what you've gone through. We don't have to go dig skeletons and everything else. All that matters is we have a really clear indication of where are you right now with the struggle, with everything exactly as it is. And then the vision, where do you want to be? And from those 2 points, anybody that has an open mind can achieve that end result quicker and moreover greater than that result by going through that reprogramming, the perception shifting, which will then change their results.
Hey, this is Ido Letterman. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, don't miss out on my free Burnout-Free business guide. It's a simple 7-day plan to help you reset your relationship with your business, improve your mindset, and achieve more while staying balanced. You can download it right now for free using the link in the description. And before you go, I've handpicked 2 more interviews that I know you'll find incredibly valuable. These videos dive even deeper into strategies that can help you reach the tipping point of your success. Just click on one of them and continue your journey to building a thriving business that you deserve. See you in the next episode.